Namaskar. Here we are back with another episode of Career Corner. As is our regular practice, we come every day with a new episode of Career Corner where we focus on one domain of learning and career. One domain which is a niche domain, a specialized domain, and we look into various aspects of the domain from its origin, evolution, and its current status. We also look into the future possibilities of that domain, what sort of education is being done across the country and the world, and specifically in the context of Adamas University, and what sort of skill sets are required to enter there, to evolve there, and to become an employable human resource. Today we take up a very interesting domain called political science, which is a part of the broader scheme of things of liberal arts, and some people call it social sciences. The same thing. So you have a huge domain of social sciences or liberal arts with a focused area of political science, and within that there are other focus areas we'll be talking about, I'm sure, political theory, public administration, international relations, and many more. We will understand that, and like every time we bring a stalwart, a scholar of that particular field in front of you who talks about every nuance of that domain, its learning, its practice, its education, its future. Today we have with us Professor Dr. Jitendra Nayak, the head of the Department of Political Science, School of Liberal Arts and Culture Studies, Adamas University, Kolkata. Thank you and welcome, Dr. Nayak.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
We are talking about political science, and the first thing that comes to mind is that whether and how much of political science is scientific. And that we begin with that question. Please build a case of political science as a scientific body of learning.
Thank you so much. It's an interesting question, and to understand when this is a very typical question which generally people from a pure science or someone who is from the non-social science background generally ask why we call it a political science, or why the word political science is added to it. If we go into the detail, the research methodology part or the data analysis part is the science behind the political science. Here we put to verification the information which gather from the field. Even if you talk about the subject like psephology, it also focuses on the data which you get from the field, the information we gather from the people, and ultimately it is put into a data. And these data, just like any other social pure sciences, can be put to verification. So this is the science part of it, and one of the element of a science is the data or the information which can be validated again and again using the scientific principles. If I give you an example, like the Mandela theory, people are used to say that, okay, it's a theoretical aspect. But if you go and refer to the website or Google, there is an entire mathematical deduction which has been done to understand the Mandela theory. Even for a second example, I can talk about Gandhism. If you talk about Gandhism, people say it's a theory of non-violence and peace, which was preached by Gandhi not only to India but across the entire planet. So here, even a particular book, if I give a reference of Gandhika, which has been done by so many scholars around the world, here also in that particular book, a mathematical deduction is used to understand Gandhi. So here, when you try to understand the word, the science behind political science, it is the validation of the phenomena which is happening around the world. It has a mathematical deduction, and at the same time it has an application. And again, what is one of the important aspects of science, it can be put to verification and it can be validated.
That builds a case of approaching political science with mathematical models and natural science approach. But having said that, there are also ways and means of studying political science with a scientific approach in general, if not models. Can you speak about scientific approach to study political science, human behavior in political context?
Okay, so as we say, as already been mentioned, that social science, which is a very wide arena, which is a study of social behavior. Political science is all about study of political behavior. Directly or indirectly, we are all surrounded by the political activities which is happening. For example, if there is a crime which is happening, again you call the first person to consult is the police, which is an extension of government. If there is an issue in the aggression, or there is an internal or external security issues, you call for the military or the paramilitary. Again, that is an extension of the government. Third thing, if I talk about even the law and judiciary mechanism, that is also a legal aspect and extension of the government. So all these aspects, when you talk about in a structural manner, is nothing but it's an extension or the study of phenomena which impacts every human being, and to understand in a very sequential manner. It is nothing but our day-to-day life which is been influenced, or it been part of it with this all political debates and discourse. And take for matter, if I talk about Aristotle, who is considered to be the father of political science, he says man by nature is a political animal. You cannot refrain from not being political or say, okay, I'm apolitical. You can be apolitical in terms of following your allegiance to a political party, but being a part of all these mechanisms, directly or indirectly, you are part of it. So it provides you a very structural phenomena where you are part of it, and it goes in a very stage-wise, a sequential manner.
Great, great. That gives us a better understanding of political science as a concept. You just mentioned the father of political science being Aristotle. Can you talk about the evolution of political science from Aristotelian times till 21st century, in brief, understandably, because we'll take up several other issues here. We'll talk about ideologies maybe later, but if you talk about the evolution, the various phases, and the overarching concepts and the leaders, thought leaders in each of these phases briefly.
Okay. Again, it's a very important question, and I think to understand political science and not paying homage to these stalwarts, it will be like a half job done. So if I talk about Aristotle, there are lineages of philosophers who were not only it's like a 21st century where we need to be a master of all the trades and discipline. These political founders, or when you call about theorists like Aristotle or Plato or Socrates, they were all into different disciplines, be it a philosophy, be it an economist, or be it any other discipline. So if I talk about Aristotle, why we call him a father of political science? Because he's the one who propounded or who gave the modern version of constitutionalism. And when we talk about the social contract theory of Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau, where he defined that the society is solitary, nasty, brutish, and short, and for bringing law and order, bringing a system of government, bringing general will, we need certain mechanism. And whatever you see in the modern day democracy or any form of a political system, be it a monarchy or be it a presidential system, it is nothing but an extension of the work which has been done by this stalwarts almost 400 BC and much ahead. So the extension of general will, which is sum total of the individual will, the police state, the voting behavior, the separation of states, which are propounded by the French political theorists like Montesquieu. But why we call Aristotle father of political science? Because he's the one who brought about the major change which is still being followed in most of the democracy and democratic form of government. But again, if I look into my country, how the political science developed, we have to give we have to revere Kautilya, or we also refer him as Chanakya, his world famous book called Arthashastra, where he's talking about the treatise or the science of politics. So we have a long history, and this discipline itself date back to a good number of years, and which is still a very relevant discipline, understanding, because politics, society, people will go on and will be a part of human history.
Great. That's an evolution phase by phase and stalwart by stalwart of political science traditionally from Aristotelian times. There are certain ideologies that stand out. We have known about certain concepts, whether it is utopianism or it is liberalism, individualism, or it is socialism, Marxism, communism, or it is welfareism. There have been certain concepts that have stood by over the centuries in political thinking. If you could identify, I have identified few, but if you could identify, let's say 7 or 8 top concepts or ideologies that have come up in political science or evolution of political science, and the key idea of each of them, how are they different from one another, the key 1 or 2 ideas without getting into too many details. Over to you.
Thank you. So here again, as you already mentioned, that political science is a very broad category. The isms are part of political theory. Just like when you talk about international relations, where we deal about the government, the mechanism, the power relations, soft and hard diplomacy, then we talk about comparative politics, then we talk about political economy, or we talk about international relations. Isms fall into the category of political theories, because isms or the idea or the ideology has brought about change in the way we understand. Take for example liberalism. This is a phenomena where we are talking about the liberty, where we're talking about the economy at the same time, where it's not only the liberty or the freedom which an individual demands or gets as a due claim, but also the type of economy we are talking about. Like in India, we talk about that 21st century is an era of liberalism and globalization. It's all about the free market economy, where we talk about laissez-faire or what we call it, leave it alone, where the individual players play a dominant role and the government just work as a regulator and facilitator or a manager. If I talk about any other ideology like feminism, which has also grown into its popularity in the current scenario, and again, just through this platform, I want to make it understand that feminism is an ideology which talks about equal opportunities to all genders. It's not a competition. It's more like a rights which are claimed by a particular gender to get equal opportunities in all walks of life. These are the 2 ideologies which has become quite famous and quite prominent in the era of globalization and the women right or the gender right movements. If I can recall any of the isms which are very important apart from these ideologies are nationalism, because again the notion of nation or the definition of nation, sometimes even if you must have noticed, we call India a state, we call India as a federal unit, we call India as a federalism, somebody say India is a country, somebody say India is a nation, somebody say it's a nation state. So all these aspects need to be understood as how you are going to define and what are the characteristics or elements are available when you are looking into that definition. So the notion of nationalism is again a very important ism which has come into prominence, because there is a time, and if I give a current relevance issue, that we talk about military nationalism. Nationalism was all about feeling of belongingness to a nation, where you are coming together and has the same feeling because of the culture, the practice, the mores, the etiquettes, the arts, and its long history. So all these aspects, all these isms are thoroughly understood in the discipline of political science, and I will assure that understanding of idea is the one of the key factor to build a better argument and to understand what exactly the newspaper or what we are talking about in real sense.
Right. And moving ahead from concepts or ideologies, if you can look into the domains within political science, you have started talking about international relations part already. So the various specialization or niche areas within the broad paradigm of political science, what would be they and what are the key focus areas?
Okay. See, political science is something which has evolved over the years. I myself from political science has taken courses which have been quite an interdisciplinary. So if I just mention my little academic journey just for my audience and for my dear students, here I did political science honors, where I studied about all the papers of political science, right from public administration to international relations to comparative politics. That was the only paper from first semester till my 6th semester. Then I went to JNU to pursue my higher degrees in political studies, again it's very theoretical. After that, it was a journey towards IIT Bombay, where I understood policy with political studies, and that was an extension of my MPhil and PhD work. So here, your extension and your graduation in public administration, political theories, different ideas can sum total in development of, or a comparison or a comparative study of research, where you're not only using the government mechanism, how it's functioning, but you're also using the latest disciplines like information communication technology. My research work based on the policy understanding, the policy impact and assessment of these policies on technology, on women empowerment, and even I have worked on certain papers where the policy of a government, which is very much part of a political science, how technologically it has impacted a particular state. For example, let me give like the state of Kerala in 2009 started a e-literacy program. This is completely a government decision, right? So what has to do with the policy? Political science. But here, one discipline which we call it public policy. I did a research work, and it was a part of a work where you were trying to understand that how an implementation of a policy where so many political actors and non-political actors are involved, how their proper synchronization is involved to make a particular policy effective. So this particular ICT, which is now a modern day demand, can also be looked from the mirror or through the lens of political science, where you are focusing on policy study. Another important aspect which I can mention about political science is political economy, because the world is going through a major political change, and right economy too influences any political decisions. Any strategic or geopolitical issues has a backing of a political and economic factors. So political economy within political science has itself become an important discipline in itself, and it's an extension of political science itself.
Great. We had a discussion on the isms as well a little earlier. I understand the nationalism, the internationalism part that you brought forth. Has this progress from nationalistic perspectives to international ideology or international perspectives have evolved political science to a different ballgame or different level? If you could speak on the national international paradigm change within political science.
Okay, so as Thomas Kuhn talks about the paradigm shift, so even if I talk about the changes which we have seen in the liberalization phase, or what we, in other words, in India we use it LPG, what liberalization, privatization and globalization. Similarly, the notion of nation and the feeling of nationalism has also changed the entire course, because for nationalism, or one of the important powerful element of nationalism was sovereignty. And because of the world getting connected through economic means, there are certain decisions, there are certain influences which are happening from a third country, and which has become a very much part of a global political system. Similarly, when you talk about extreme nationalism, then again it is very difficult to define what we mean by extreme nationalism. Are we talking about North Korea? Are we talking about a political system which doesn't provide freedom to media? Or are we talking about a political system where media is there but their rights are curtailed? So we have to understand through these dialogues and discourse that is the connecting or making what Marshall McLuhan talks about global village. Can in this particular era of connectivity, both economic and technology, can we talk or assert about one nation and nationalism, or we can talk about the internationalism? So that is again a matter of debate and discourse, and as I mentioned earlier, we have to decide from which lens we are watching it. Because if I go into an ideology of a political party, then the definition changes. If I talk as a political scientist, then the definition changes. Which country is watching you, then the definition changes. So it's all about the perspective which we need to understand to have a broader understanding of internationalism or a nationalism.
We'll get back to that little later again. There has been also a huge impact of all those ideologies which talked about exploitation of man by man. So there were concepts of socialism, there were concepts of liberalism, and there were concepts of communism. So liberalism, which focused on individual rights and liberty, equality, liberty, fraternity, and which talked about the individual at the top of his life, and talked about exodus, or rather in effect brought in or advocated exodus of bonded peasants to agriculture, from agriculture to industrial civilization, industrial world, where they could be independent workers. So that was one, and it developed largely in urban centers, understanding that freedom from feudalism will bring in liberal aspects or liberalism of the individual. Then there was the coming in of socialism, which talked about from each according to his work, according to his ability, to each according to his work, and there has to be a parity in society with respect to economic reforms, positioning, or whatever, and there cannot be a huge disparity of income and expenditure among the people within the same society. Then there came communism, where people talked about no individual ownership. The entire thing is owned by the society, read the state in effect, and where from each according to his ability to each according to his need. And this individual profiteering got a huge hit. Now these three concepts, one in the middle, and we also have welfareism, which talks about capitalism to continue but with care taken and social security measures taken for the people at the grassroots. So these four concepts impacted the last 100 to 120 years of human civilization in political science. What do you have to say about these? Going ahead, are we looking at political systems from ideological lines, or merely pragmatism and as per situation? Where are we going towards?
Thank you so much. It's indeed a very in-depth question which needs a thorough understanding of how we are trying to relate to this all phenomena. Right from, if you talk about liberalism, which has already been an existing phenomena and there is an extension. If you talk about welfareism, it's still there, but there are certain reduction in the current. What we say, the more the power of with the people, the lesser the power with the government, and vice versa. And if you talk about the modern day capability approach of Amartya Sen, he's the one who is emphasizing each according to need and each according to capacity. And if I give a reference of his, since as you all know, he's a political economist who has written a world famous book called Development as Freedom. Here, he's not only emphasizing on the socialist or the communist notion, and he's also trying to focus on development. But at the same time, he's also talking about the freedom. For him, development is only possible if freedom is there. It means it's going with the principle of liberalism, liberty, rights, dues, claims, where individuals are not taken as a bonded labor or he's taken as a slave. But he is doing a particular work based on his capacity. What it is in his book, he mentioned about the capability approach, where each one is capable to do a particular job. So he or she will be getting as per his capacity. The second important point which he mentioned is all development, where both the private sector and the public sector has to go hand in hand. What we call the PPP model, where he adds the another P, public, private, people's partnership, rather than just public and private partnership, because
Very
where
good.
are the people?
Very good.
So here you have to take into account that when Amartya Sen talks about development as freedom, he's not saying that development is a ban or a boon. He says, where are the people? If people are not skilled, they need to be developed that skill, because ultimately if you don't develop that capability, their capacity will not improve. And to consider their rights, liberty, their freedom is also important, because freedom leads to creativity, And it is the leisure which builds creativity, which gives you time and opportunity to be creative for the society, the nation, and the country you are part of. So if I sum total all the ideologies which just mentioned, development as freedom, the work given by Amartya Sen founds very handy. And if I talk about the role of the government, the welfare notion, which is dwindling in the recent times, where private players are playing an important role, but we have to take into account political institutions, government are the one we are directly part of it through election, indirectly and directly, passively and actively we say, and they are answerable to us. They are the elected representatives which we send to the parliament. The private players are there who work under the leadership or under the regulatory mechanism of the government, but they are not answerable to the people of this country. They are answerable to the government. So we need to strike a balance in the welfare measures where private players, since the government has also extended that role as a corporate social responsibility because they earn the money from a country, so you are giving back to the society. And if you talk about Tata Foundation or any other foundation, they have done extensively and they feel themselves responsible. So the welfare notion, the development notion, the liberty notion, all need to strike a balance, because for a development of country, freedom is one most important aspect, not only from external but also from internal factors.
There is a concept that politics is not fundamental to a society. Is the economic relations within the society which is fundamental, and is the economic relations among various groups and classes of people that determines the politics, which is and even culture, which is a part of the superstructure, the infrastructure or the foundation being economics. What do you have to say about it?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, that political economy has become the latest buzzword.
Right.
Because if you don't understand the economy, you cannot take political decisions, and if you don't take right political decisions, your economy will be jeopardized. So political economy and some of the important political theorists, like if I talk about my few faculties who have taught me earlier, that to understand or strike a balance between politics and economy matters a lot, and in the current global world, any decision can hurt your economy. Take for example the current petroleum price. There was some sort of a decision or some sort of an international issue which happened in Iran with relation to US, and it impacted India. So one particular sort of a political decision which was revolving around in international issues, their affiliation with particular group of people who are, if I say it, against a nation or the nation, it impacted the oil price in India. So you understand that how a particular decision by a political leader can impact every last person of a continent, because we are not directly part to what the president of America is saying or the president of Iran is saying or what our prime minister is saying, but we do get inflected. So this is what you have to understand, that even if we say that we don't understand or we are not part of political science, or if I say politics, we indirectly are, and every day our life is influenced by it.
Right. That also brings another perspective here. Understanding of politics is common to a learned person in general, but understanding of political science is a subject of rigorous learning, academic learning, also learning with research and application. So how do you teach political science in your department, or rather, if I can say, mentor political science to your learners at the bachelor's level, master's level, PhD level, and how, for that matter, political science has been a traditional subject in every or majorly almost all universities. How differently are you doing it? What are the programs that you run?
Thank you so much. So again, it backs to the question which most of you will be eagerly waiting, that how political science is being taught. Because there are people who say that, okay, it's very theoretical, difficult to mug up. There are so many articles when you study constitutions. So if I specifically talk about my department, we have devised a notion where participation by the student is important. They play the key role. Whatever materials or whatever lectures are scheduled for a week or for a month, it's already been informed to the students, and they have to come up with, if I'm just mentioning a few points, they have to come up with a 1-minute video. It means 60-second video to explain that concept. Here, the connectivity of technology with the understanding also is very much crucial, because teaching a theoretical paper, the attention span of the student also need to be taken into considerations. Are they getting it? Are they understanding it? Because they are still at the very learner stage where they are learning to build an understanding about the theoretical aspects. So they take up different topics. For example, if I just give you an example of Article 19, which it talks about freedom, how to study, because it's difficult. So what they do, they have to create an abbreviation. If I say SAAM resides in Poland, this is Article 19. S stands for freedom of speech and expression. A stands for freedom of assembly. Second A stands for freedom of association. M stands for freedom of movement. R stands for freedom of residing in any part of India. And P stands for propagate, profess any profession of his or her choice. So entire this particular Article 19, which has also called bunch of rights, is just been synchronized into one word. I think even you now know Sam resides in Poland means what? It means Article 19. So this is the device which is then, and it becomes so creative that students are putting this effort to create their own way of creating abbreviation which can be remembered. And for that, even in my lecture, the entire constitution is taught in just 5 lines, and they remember forever. I think even those who are watching now will not forget that Sam reside in Poland can be abbreviated in such a creative manner. This is the second one which I said, apart from 60-minute video. The third one is that they have a blog page, Vox Populi, there where they just write whatever it comes. And I don't bother them with the right spelling or grammar, but tell them write whatever is right. Because expression of ideas, expression of thoughts is important. They will learn within this 3 years that, okay, this is a mistake, this argument is not building, I could have substantiated with some more information, but at least they have a point of reference where they can say that, okay, I was wrong, this was so shabby, it was not well written, I should write it again. So this creates a writing pattern. The third one is they also know few technical skills, like if you are creating a 1-minute video that is 60 seconds, it cannot cross 1 minute 1 second. They learn the editing skills at the same time, which is the need of the hour. So all these aspects, apart from learning and apart from practicing in a practical sense, makes the entire theoretical paper at the same time a very practical approach, and which is a fun in learning. And this is also handy because they have the tool, they have the technology, they are interested, and this makes the subject interesting. And whatever they make a video, they upload in their own department or the school YouTube page, which is obviously circulated for them, as it's still for their own internal use, but this is an approach which makes them active every day and learn it in a very lively environment.
So those are the unique practices that you have at your department to bring political science learned in a very interesting, utilitarian and easy to remember way. At the master's level, what are the courses you have, and what is your research ecosystem in the department?
At the master level, again, it's an extension of the 3 years degree course, and as we have 2 specializations, one in masters in public administration and masters in international relations. So when we talk about masters in public administration, we are talking about subjects related to policy studies, subjects related to political sociology, subjects related to research methodology, and the research methodology along with the dissertation which a student has to write. And this also builds or takes to the second question about the research approach. What has been done, that all the research projects which are given by faculty members, there is a selection of few papers, and there is a research monograph called Episteme has been started by the department, where they get an opportunity to publish their work. And this gives a very good feeling that okay, my particular project, which was selected based on a proper writing, which is obviously based on the research methodology, the structuring part of it, has been published. And this gives a sense of moral boosting, that okay, my paper has been selected and published. This creates an opportunity for other people to write original research papers, because they know that the department faculty members or the school will be using the software to do the plagiarism test, which we have made it very compulsory. That you come with an original idea, you come with an original concept, forget about the spelling mistakes and others which can be rectified, but come with an original idea. And similarly, for the research point of view, a paper has been devised. It's a 2-paper template which was incorporated. This was an extension of what I got, and I have extended it to my students. It's a 2-page template related to the research, where very strict numbering word limit is given. Like for a title, I have given just 25 words, and within 25 words you have to think about a title instantly, without referring Google, without referring any book or anything. You have to instantly think, because if you are going to work on a topic of your interest, definitely you know something about that topic. Then you write an introduction based on your understanding, what you think, what can be tentative introduction, what methodology, whatever you know, that you are going to go and stand at the mall and ask people. You will go and stand at the gate of the Adamas to ask people, or you will go and ask other department mates or your faculty members. So that is the methodology. These are all learning stage, because if I just put them to go and read a research methodology book, it will be difficult. So this is a very infant stage of making them interested to learn, and finally they come up and they refer that okay, whatever they were thinking, there are articles on Google who talks about the same thing. So here again, it's also kind of a moral boosting, where they feel that yeah, without referring Google and book, they know much more than what they were expecting.
Great. That talks about the research approach that you have. How many faculty members and how many research scholars at this point of time?
So we have a good amount of faculty members. We have 2 emeritus, very well-known faculty members who have done a lot of work in their academic career, almost ranging into 3 decades, like Professor Tridip Chakraborty, who is an expert in international relations and was from Jadavpur University, and he is also the Professor Emeritus in our department. And another important faculty, a senior faculty, is Professor Moitri Bardhan Roy, who was ex-principal in Basanti Devi College, and she also is an expert in another domain called public administration. Lot of research works going under her, lot of opportunities which she creates for her students and for the department. Another faculty, we have Professor Pallavi Sinha. She is an expert in public administration. The other faculty which has recently joined is Professor Navamita Debhaumik from JNU. She expertise in international relations. And apart from that, we have a good number of research scholars under all the faculty members, almost 2 each, which makes it almost around 7. And the important aspect which is given to these research scholars who are pursuing their PhD is to publish with their faculty members. It's not just that you do the data work, do the chapterization, go for a field work, but also make it a point that during this tenure, you at least publish 2 or 1 journal in a good reputed UGC Care or Scopus journal with your research guide. Because this also validates, because I have also mentioned in the PhD research scholar meet, that because it helps to validate the information which you are gathering from the field. Then your examiner, or when you have the viva, your information will not be doubted, because you have already have the peer review and you get the information beforehand that you are going on a right direction.
Great. Great. That gives an overview of the work that you do at the department, and that's quite diverse. and very interesting practices that you are bringing forth. Post-COVID or impact of COVID on the domain of political science. People say that on one hand, people's personal behavior patterns are changing and there is restricted movement, there are no political activism on the streets in the lockdown period, and across the world there is the rise of the surveillance state, either on the ground of safety, security and hygiene, or on grounds of technology innovations or technologies involvement in day-to-day life. There is the rise of surveillance state or spying. What do you think would be the immediate and long-standing impact of COVID-19, this century's biggest impact on human life, on the field of political science and international relations?
Here it brings me to the previous question of the welfare notion of the state. If I look into that, this particular post-COVID or during the COVID, the role of the government increased manifold. What we were talking about, how the role of the government is moving away from the people. This given an image of government in totality, where they have to play a very dominating role in controlling, in providing facilities for the patients and the breakdown of the entire machinery. Because ultimately it was more of the control state where strict impositions, strict restrictions, curfew were imposed. If I talk specifically in terms of the India, there are issues raising around the federal structure, the center-state relationship, because we are unitary in nature, we're federal in character, where each state has its own police, its own political system and own constitutional mechanism. And because of this COVID, when the central government imposed the restrictions, it became quite a question which was in all the media, that what is the role and responsibility of the state government? How is it infringing into their separate character, where we talk about federal structure in India? It is not like United States, where each state is a total entity in itself. As I mentioned, India is unitary in character, but federal in feature. So what I am trying to talk about in the current scenario, that there are issues where they are mentioning that how we are going to define and deliberate about the center-state relation. Is this particular sort of central control is creating any sort of a precedence for future, where central government will become more powerful compared to the state government for the national interest? So we have to seriously give a deep thought on it.
Great. Thank you. And that brings us to the end of this very exciting, interesting, diverse discussion on political science, international relations, political ideologies, impact of COVID on political science, and the right way, interesting way, humorous also, and engaging as well, way to learn political science and international relations for the future. It brings us to an end of understanding how scientific tools also to a large extent can be utilized for the learning of political science, how ideologies have evolved from Aristotle's time till today, when welfarism, socialism, liberalism are taking new dimensions, new interpretations. We have looked at how people's lives are interconnected. Political science as a discipline is finally a multidisciplinary approach, because it looks at human behavior in certain contexts. We have looked at that the need for an open mind, a liberal mind, a mind that is open to ideas and conflicting ideologies, to understand what can best well go in a certain situation, a certain nation. We have also looked at how on one side welfare role of the state is increasing, and on the other side the surveillance role of the state is also increasing post-COVID. It's very interesting to see that most of the nations among the top 10 infected countries are also those who are having increasingly totalitarian or centralizing governments. It will be an interesting time to see ahead how civil rights, fundamental rights, civil society activism are protected and enhanced, at least in democratic nations, while on the other hand the pandemic rages, surveillance increased, and economic crisis looms large. It's indeed a very significant transitional moment of history in mankind, and also a major role of political science as a discipline and political scientists of today and tomorrow to make an impact and protect rights and democracy. Thank you, Professor Jitendra Nayak, Head of the Department Political Science, School of Liberal Arts and Cultural Studies, Adamas University, Kolkata, for giving a rundown of your discipline, its specialized areas, its history, its evolution, its theory and thought, post-COVID impact, and most interestingly, the interesting ways of studying political science at undergraduate, postgraduate levels, and also giving your thoughts, sharing your practices with respect to research in political science. Thank you, and see you all again. We shall meet once again with another topic, another career, and another expert. Namaskar.
Hey, welcome to Adamas. My research is on my way. I am very much proud to be a part of Adamas University.
Cricket is my passion and I am proud to be a part of Adamas University.
You have misused, I believe.
Hi, I'm Debosmita Biswas.
This is Kunal Kanti Maiti.
I'm Srijo Nicole. This college has given me placement in one of the best companies in US staffing, which is Iconma. I am proud to be a part of Adamas University.
Pursue excellence. Adamas University.
Biosciences and technological developments based on biology, including entrepreneurship in this sector, are on the rise in India. We are home to many developments in all forms of biotechnological products with applications in food, nutrition, healthcare, packaging, etc. The unique BTech and BSc programs in Adamas School of Biosciences and Biotechnology are path-breaking academic innovation in this sector. Welcome to the world of biotechnology. As India aims for $5 trillion economy, the nation needs a large pool of trained economists and commerce graduates, focusing on taxation, macro and microeconomics, etc. Adamas School of Economics and Commerce is in the mission preparing finance and economics professional to lead this journey with value-added modules on the stock market and big data. Education today is changing the traditional chalk and talk method into new age experiential learning. New techniques like flipped classroom, case study method, and increasingly higher component of learning by doing are changing the game. Also, evaluation processes are evolving from just semester end exam to continuous evaluation. Jury judge practical work, life projects, and whatnot. Adamas School of Education prepares these new age teachers for schools and colleges of India. It is important to be on the right side of the law and even more important to ensure justice for all. The Adamas School of Law and Justice firmly believes in this dictum. With moot courts, national and international seminars, debates and initiatives of various type, the law school offers integrated courses with BBA, BCom and BA as well, with different focus areas. A top-class hands-on engineering and technology education with high emphasis on soft skills, emotional intelligence, artificial intelligence learning, the Adamas School of Engineering and Technology is a trailblazing institute. It integrates learning in the classroom with the laboratory, workshops, and the factories or the corporate offices. It is also associated with several universities in the world. With a 24-hour work culture, Adamas School of Management prepares professionals for marketing, human resources, finance, supply chain management, and pharmaceutical management for the new Indian economy targeting $5 trillion annually. Close association with several top corporate houses and intellectual talent in the classroom, the school is proud to have one of the highest placement records in East and the Northeast India. With a 2% share of the India's GDP, the media industry is growing faster than India's GDP. And with the world's largest number of films and television channels, it is the national informer and entertainer. With more than 1,000 films a year, cinema is our soft power. News, entertainment, brand communication, we lead Asia in all. And a multi-skilled multimedia talent is being trained in the Adamas School of Media and Communication. Pharmaceutical technology is on the rise in India in particular and Asia in general. And newer research in medicine is modernizing the sector immensely. We in India have the fastest growing pharma sector in the developing world today. Adamas School of Pharmaceutical Technology, with its superb and detailed laboratory facilities, has one of the best pharma schools in the nation waiting to welcome you. Global society of nearly 8 billion people with 1.3 billion in India is going through a churn. Be it politics, economics, history, society, international relations, or in the literary expressions. There are major movements, growth initiatives, new literary trends, and the social issues rising in various parts of the world. Hence, the need to have an in-depth, perceptive education of liberal arts which encompasses all of these. Welcome to the Adamas University School of Social Sciences.
ভালো রোজগার, কাজের স্বীকৃতি, স্বপ্নের চাকরি, এগুলোর জন্য কি শুধুই কঠোর পরিশ্রম যথেষ্ট? না, এটা পড়াশোনা এবং প্রফেশনাল ট্রেনিং এর একটা কম্বিনেশন। তাই যে এমন একটি কলেজ বা ইউনিভার্সিটি যেটা এই দুটোরই গ্যারান্টি দেয়, যেমন অ্যাডামাস ইউনিভার্সিটি। এখানে ছাত্ররা শুধু পরীক্ষায় দারুণ নম্বরই নয়, সঙ্গে পায় দুর্দান্ত প্লেসমেন্ট এবং কর্মজীবনের প্রয়োজনীয় দক্ষতা। তাই আজই নিজেকে রেজিস্টার করো অ্যাডামাস ইউনিভার্সিটির অ্যাডমিশন টেস্টে আর এগিয়ে যাও একটা উজ্জ্বল ভবিষ্যতের দিকে।